Welcome, Battletech enthusiasts. Today we're going to paint House Steiner. Now, I've started off by buying some mechs on eBay, and here's I'm stripping it. It's a quick montage of stripping the paint off and assembling it. And if you want more details, you'll have to look at my stripping videos. Here I'm going to prime it, a quick montage here. Again, you will look at my priming videos to get more detail. But essentially, I'm prepping the mech here. You see that I'm always thinning all my paints with a little bit of water. You can mix your primer with the back end of a brush. And there I go. I'm now priming it. And this is the very same mech that I had purchased on eBay that had those horrible colors in the front and that I had just stripped with acetone and a wire brush. And here I am going to turn it into a Steiner mech. Now, I've had to time compress a lot of these videos. Here are the brushes that I'm using. I have some Series 7 Winsor Newtons, but you don't need those. You can use cheaper brushes too. Here's the Ultramarine blue. I'm putting down a little dab of it straight from the bottle. I'm now adding about an equal volume of water to it. And I've noticed I did not mix the paint in the bottle beforehand, so it's a little lighter blue than it can be. But I'm mixing it here now with this bamboo stick. And now I'm taking, only the outer third of my brush gets paint on it when I take it out of the paint cup. And here I've started brushing it. This is called base coating. I'm now base coating it with the ultramarine blue on the majority of the mech, except for the right arm, which will be white. But here and the right side of the torso will be white. So here I've skipped. I'm playing at double speed, and I've also cut out maybe a third of the total painting strokes just because the video would otherwise be too long. This video is already at 15 minutes if I just do this compressed version. So you're seeing a significant chunk of all the painting strokes, but not all. Okay, so there you see how I wiped it. Here's my reference and a Zeus I have painted in the past. I want to just remind myself how I painted it before so I don't mess up and paint it differently. Here's my black. I'm now going to, this is a undercoat that will go under the gunmetal color of the weapons and missile launchers and also the cockpit. So now I'm going to, again, mix it with the end of the stick. I can break off the end of the bamboo stick if I want fresh bamboo, but it's you can use like one skewer for many mechs. Now here I'm watered down the black paint so it flows easily. You can see I'm putting it on the weapon here, on the back also, and then I will put it on the front. I have to remind myself how I painted it before. It's on only the front of the LRM launcher here on the other arm. And this black will, in theory, be covered over with gunmetal or silver, but in reality, you will see parts of the black kind of poke out from under the metallic flakes. Now here, the cockpit. The cockpit will be painted with Crystal Cave later, but to underlayer that, again, is black, because you will see, again, between the flakes of colorant, you will see a little bit of black, and it makes it look better. So undercoat, cockpit always black, and weapons always black. And you'll see the full paint job here on this. And here the very tip of the weapon wasn't painted there. Now this is Ceramite White. It comes in one of these Games Workshop's paint pots. It was a little bit settled, so I had to stir it, and I used that bamboo stick to stir it. Also, I'm using a crappy brush here, because I don't want to use nice brushes with Games Workshop paints, because I don't think they're good paints compared to the game color inks and game color paints. So I'll generally use poorer quality brushes with them. So this is some no-name generic brush. Also, I'm taking it straight out of the bottle. Ceramite White, I like the very intense white that you get from this. So that's why I'm just taking it straight out of the bottle. It's a little thick, but I've thinned it a little bit by wetting the brush beforehand. So anyway, this is the base color, and you'll notice I'm not being too careful with the lines because we will touch those up later. I'm just making sure that I get all the all the spots. And again, I'm reminding myself again with my reference as to how I actually painted the white last time. And I noticed I had missed some things, so I'm going to change strategies a little bit here later. But again, now the torso here, you don't have to be too careful with the coloring job here because you can go over it like 2 or 3 times if necessary. But I just mainly, this is a indicator layer here, this first time through. I'm just showing what color I want everything to be. I'm not necessarily trying to finish it off and make it the final color. So I'm just making sure every part that has white on it is something I want to be white. But it turns out this is already thick enough here that it's may not even need multiple layers on it. And now I need to get this little collar, the little shroud that protects the head. I need to get the white on there. I'm very much not making it a very bright white here because I will touch this up again later. So I just want to indicate the color so I remind myself what parts are supposed to be white. That's why I don't really care the fact that it's kind of partly you can see through to the blue on it. Okay, there, now I have mostly finished the first shot through the white. And now I'm going to touch up a couple spots that are a little bit weak. And you don't have to worry about it getting onto the blue in the wrong places because you'll touch up with a much finer brush later, one of the high quality brushes later, and fix up the lines where the white has kind of spilled over onto the blue. I prefer to spill the white onto the blue and then retouch with the blue rather than having blue spill onto white trying to retouch with white. Because white you tend to see the colors that are under it easier. So if you paint your white second to the last and then you do your blue last, it's easier to fix the points where you accidentally got some of the white paint onto the blue parts where you didn't want it to be. Now here I'm seeing how I swish it and I kind of strike it against the paper towel. This is a Turbo Dork. This is a special, how annoying, the little ring came off. This one is a color changing paint, so it changes angle, depending on what angle you look. It's kind of a fancy paint, but I like the look of this on the cockpit. You don't need to have this fancy of a cockpit. You can even leave the cockpit black and it looks okay on the table. But I've started doing this a lot. I've basically make my cockpit black and then I will Turbo Dork it. Now I'm using a reasonable quality brush here. This is one of the Series 7 brushes, one of the larger ones. Maybe it's like a size 00 or 0 or something. Maybe it's even, not sure, maybe it's even the size 1. Because I'm just putting a thin coat. It turns out this paint looks like a white cloudy paste when you put it on, if you make it thick, and it dries into this really thin blue color changing shimmer. That's normal. Okay, now I'm going to touch up the guns and the LRM. So I'm going to put a little bit of gunmetal, but I'm going to add a little drop of water, and I'm mixing it with the back end of this really low quality brush that I have. This is like this Chinese brush, but I don't like using high quality brushes on metallics because it tends to ruin the brush quickly. So I'm using this cheap brush for the metallics, and I only have to really hit the end of the black parts on the missile launcher and on the gun, on the other arm. You might, if you choose, if your style is to paint actuators and whatnot also this way, then of course it will take you longer. The good part of this is the black cockpit and that Turbo Dork are drying. They can still be wet while you're doing the guns because they're separated. Now I'm going to do the base a little bit here. I'm going to give you a little bonus of showing you how to do the base. I use this from Home Depot, this plastic wood. It doesn't really matter what color you get, but I like the tan one because then I can mix in some game ink colors to make it look like sort of like an earth. So this is I'm adding a couple drops of game ink brown and game ink black. This also serves to make this plastic wood less solid. So it's more of a flowy liquid now when I mix it with these game inks. The surprisingly small amount of game ink turns this otherwise very viscous plastic wood more into a flowy liquid. And now I'm going to use this use the same bamboo skewer to just kind of roll it into the cracks here. It's viscous enough that it hangs on to the skewer, but as you can see, I'm kind of just rolling it in and putting it in where the base is so that I can fill in the hex. And then I will later paint over this, and this is the base. I've thought about possibly leaving those mini die in there and then pulling them out later to create a little square impression, so you can have your movement modifier and your to-hit modifier stored on the mech, on the base, in little square divots. But I haven't done that yet, but that's just an idea I was thinking of trying with this plastic wood. So anyway, now I'm kind of finishing off. I'm putting it a little bit between the legs onto the original old base, just to get just to sort of make it look contiguous, so it doesn't look like a metal flat region on a plastic wood terrain region. Now I have this Lustrian Undergrowth. I've taken a really low quality brush. This is actually a tester's brush from many years ago, and I'm using that to do this textured base paint, this Lustrian Undergrowth. This is after letting that plastic wood dry. Like, there was like a instant couple hour gap there that we didn't see. I'm now going to clean off this thing very well because I like this tester's brush. So I'm going to let it dry out, and I might use other bases with it later. Now I've put a little more back to the ultramarine blue because I'm going to do final touch-up now. So I made a very small amount. And I have got some on the top half of the divot that's more solid, and the bottom half of the divot is more liquid, so that when I want to draw fine lines, I will take it from the more solid, less watered down ultramarine blue at the top. And when I want it to just cover generically, I will take it from the more liquidy at the bottom of the divot. And now I'm going to touch up on a couple spots that the white has sort of leaked on to where I want it to be blue. I have to get close, so that's why my lens of my eyeglass is sort of visible here in the camera. I'm now touching up a couple spots that aren't blue enough, or I think have missed somehow, or whatever flaws there are. So I'm now showing you the little detailed fix-up jobs. This is all in 2x speed, so you can see that my hand is moving pretty slowly. But now I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm using my finger on a dry part of the mech to brace, so I can like micro manipulate the brush easier and run it down between two panels. So this is like I think it's a 000 brush, might be a 00000 brush, Series 7 brush. And this my bracing my finger on the mech, I can get very fine control over the brush, so that because usually your heart and your natural shaking of your hand will cause your hand to jitter otherwise. And so you need, in order to do micro fine brush strokes, you will want to do bracing like that. So this is why this is also going, here I'm finishing it off. I'm skipping a couple steps, which were just basically more of what you see, just touching up a few spots here and there. Now I'm cleaning it off. Now the final part, see the mech is supposed to look battle worn. So I'm going to take a really large brush. I'm going to first wet it to sort of help dilute this Nuln Oil, and then just kind of brush it on. It's going to be this blackening smoke. I like this battlefield smoke look, so I Nuln Oil it up. And now my mech is complete. So you could touch up the guns and cockpit more if you wanted, but I'm happy with this as is. So there you go.
If you enjoyed this video, please go hit the subscribe button at the and that way I'll be motivated to make even more videos.